Welcome, my dear students of class 8A and 8B, to my history class. Welcome, my dear students of class 8A and 8B. Today I am going to teach you the lesson Revolt of 1857. Here there are some points mentioned in the board. Role of the British Parliament, role of the British Crown, role of Viceroy, proclamation of Queen Victoria, and point number 5, new policy of the British. These points today, under these points today I am going to teach you the lesson 11, Revolt of 1857. Point number 1, role of the British Parliament. What role had the British Parliament played after the suppression of the revolt of 1857? The British Parliament passed a new act under which the British Crown was given the right to take over the charge of the Indian people. Under the new act, it was decided that the rule under East India Company would come to an end, and the rule of British Crown would be started in India. At the same time, it was decided that the British government would take initiative in consultation with the Crown, British Crown and British Parliament. British Parliament would recognize the policies. They would consult various sides of the policies, whether it would harm the sentiments of Indian people, if it would be helpful to them, then it would be passed. But the government of Britain for India would have to consult the British Parliament and British Crown. So a rule started in India, both from two sides, from British Parliament and from the British Crown. Next point, role of the British Crown. The British Crown decided to satisfy the need and expectations of the Indian people. It was decided that one post would be created in order to see and watch over the activities of the Indian people, their attitude, their motives. Now, then how is it possible? A member of the British cabinet was appointed as the Secretary of State for Indian Affairs. And it was decided that he was supposed to answer to British Parliament and was given a council by the British Parliament. That council is known as Indian Council. Now, what was the work of Indian Council? The work of the Indian Council is to advise the Secretary of State regarding Indian affairs. And apart from this, another thing was also introduced, that was the Governor General. The Governor General of India, the post Governor General would be abolished and a new post would be created, that was Viceroy. There would be no post of Governor General but Viceroy. And who became the first Viceroy? Lord Canning became the first Viceroy, indicated that the British government accepted responsibility of India by bringing it under the direct rule of the British Parliament as well as the Queen of Britain. And next one, role of Viceroy. Role of Viceroy. Queen Victoria issued Queen Victoria, then that means the British Parliament in consultation with the British Crown would appoint Viceroy for India. Now what is the work? What should be the work of Viceroy? The Viceroy would have to shoulder all responsibilities of the people. The Viceroy would have to manage the British affairs. The Viceroy would have to take over the charge of British administration for country India. The Viceroy would ensure ensure the happiness of the Indian people. The Viceroy would have to look after whether their religious customs, traditions are being disturbed. In that case, the Viceroy would have to consult the British Queen, the British Crown or Queen, or the British Parliament. That means the Viceroy immediately would consult the British Crown, and British Crown would convey the message to the British Parliament. And next one, Proclamation of Queen Victoria. Proclamation of Queen Victoria. Queen Victoria took over the charge of Indian government, because earlier there was a system through which the British East India Company headquarters control the British administration of India from England in consultation with the British Parliament, and hence they became independent and autocrat. Their autocratic rule resented Indian people. Their autocratic policy resented Indian sepoys, and hence the Sepoy Mutiny was taken place in the year 1857. It was due to the efforts of the sepoys. The Indian people for the first time realized that they could protest against the British rule. Although people would not involve in the revolt of 1857, yet they are aroused nationalistic aspirations among the Indian people. So it was a great defeat of the British. Morally, the British had to consider defeat. Although they suppressed the revolt of 1857, although they adopted the policy of divide and rule, although they weakened the unity between the Hindus and Muslims, yet the British had to understand, the British realized it, that Indian people might start agitation, Indian people might organize revolt against the British in future, because during revolt 1857, no Indian was involved in the revolt of 1857. No Indian was involved in the revolt of 1857, but only the sepoys and a very little number of zamindars, talukdars, landlords, they supported, and few rulers of India, they supported the stance of sepoys of India, and of course the last Mughal Emperor Bahadur Shah Zafar too. But a major portion, a large section of Indian zamindars, Indian landlords, Indian talukdars, an elite group, including mass common people, they were not the part of the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 or the revolt of 1857. So the British, in that sense, decided to introduce a new technique, a new method by which they wanted to communicate a new message to the people of India that they would not harm the sentiment of Indian people, they would not harm the religious sentiments of Indian people and their religious practices and beliefs. But what they are going to make would serve the purpose of the Indian people. They would be benefited with the newly introduced British policy. The next one, new policy of the British. New policy of the British. The British decided to abolish the two expansionist policies of Lord Wellesley and Lord Dalhousie. The policy of Lord Wellesley, subsidiary alliance, was abolished. The policy of Lord Dalhousie, doctrine of lapse, was abolished. And the states which were annexed under the terms of subsidiary alliance, under the terms of the doctrine of lapse, the states, the territories of those states which came under British control by the two, expansionist policies of the British subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse, the British decided to abolish these two policies and return back the territories occupied by the company. So all the states who came under the terms of subsidiary alliance and the doctrine of lapse, they all got back their territories. They all returned back their territories by the British. And those territories, those talukdars, zamindars who were involved in the Sepoy Mutiny, their territories were confiscated. Their lands were confiscated. And all the properties they were having were seized by the British, since they directly involved in the revolt of 1857. The newly introduced policy of the British gave a message to the people of India that they would sanction huge amount of money for the growth and development of the people of India. They would spend money for the construction of roads, for helping the peasants, farmers, for helping the poor people, for helping the middle class people, for providing education, for providing employment in every sphere of life. The British communicated a message to the people of India that under the proclamation of the Queen Victoria, they would help the Indian people during their crisis, during their distress. For example, during natural disasters like drought, like flood, the British never spend money. The British never give any concession. The British never gave any concession to Indian people, Indian peasants and farmers and poor classes. People, Indian poor section was deprived of their rights. Now, under the proclamation of Queen Victoria, it was decided that the British would wholeheartedly cooperate with the Indian people by way of providing special concessions during natural disasters like drought, like flood and others. Up to this, my dear students. Thank you.